Okay, mga students, dito na tayo sa second half ng chapter 6. We will be talking about fixed asset system. Okay? So ito po yung pang-apat na process or subsystem under the expenditure cycle. Last time dito po tayo nang galing sa payroll processing. Okay? O fixed assets. Ano ba ang specific objectives natin for the fixed asset system? Oh, please take note that when we are talking of fixed assets here, we are talking about property and equipment, property, plant, and equipment. Okay, so ito yung mga long-term assets natin. Oh, please take note of these 5 specific objectives of the fixed asset system. Number 1, process the acquisition of fixed assets as needed and in accordance with formal management approval and procedures. Kasi, class, when we are talking of fixed assets, it involves a large sum of money. Hindi ito yung magkakano lang, let's say mga office supplies, mga purchases of office supplies, magkano lang naman yan. Pero when we are talking of fixed assets, it involves capital expenditure, capital investment. So hindi po yan basta-basta lang in terms of the amount. And in terms of the occurrence, hindi naman ito recurring, hindi ito madalas mangyari. So that it happens as needed lamang. Okay? Number 2, maintain adequate accounting records of asset acquisition, cost, description, and the physical location in the organization. Of course, we have to maintain the necessary accounting records. Kagaya lang din po ito ng ibang mga systems, revenue, and of course, even the conversion cycle, ganun din naman po ito. We still have to maintain accounting records. Pero, on top of that, we have to take note na kinakailangan natin identify magkano ba natin ito nabili. Okay? Kailan po natin ito nabili? Ano yung description? Asan po ito nakalocate? Because, ito po, unlike the purchase to disbursement cycle, yung sa purchasing cycle kasi natin or purchasing system, mga inventories kasi 'di ba yung binibili natin dito. And kapag nabili na ito, once it falls to the receiving area, ita-transfer po natin ito sa warehouse or sa storage area. Pero pagdating po dito sa fixed assets, kung sino po yung requesting department, sino po yung user department, sa kanya mapupunta yung ating mga fixed assets. Okay, so kinakailangang identified, especially for fixed asset accounting. Okay, that is number 2. Number 3, maintain maintain accurate depreciation records for depreciable assets in accordance with acceptable methods. Yung mga assets na depreciable, meron po tayong lapsing schedule. Lapsing schedule tawag natin dyan eh. Pero ito po yung depreciation schedule. Kasi we will be allocating it in more than one accounting period. So we have to take note magkano pa ba yung carrying value nito. Okay, from the time na binili natin ito, from year 0, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, nagde-depreciate tayo dito, Depende pa kung paano yung depreciation method natin. But we have to maintain that accurate record para ma-identify din natin at year-end magkano yung carrying value. Okay? The net book value ng ating fixed assets. Okay? Number 4, provide management with information to help them plan for future fixed asset investments. Ito pong ating mga fixed asset info, it has to be communicated with the management because they may need those information in case they will have to purchase fixed assets in the future. Especially sa production po, na meron tayong mga machineries at capital intensive ito, medyo mahal po. Kinakailangan pagplanuhan ito, meron po tayong mga cost-benefit analysis. So, they have to know ano-ano ba yung ating mga fixed assets ngayon? Gaano na ba sila katagal sa atin? Kumusta yung conditions nitong ating mga fixed assets? Are they still in their working condition? Okay pa ba yung mga yan? So, they must know. And last, no? Properly record the retirement and disposal of fixed assets. So kung kinakailangan ng ipahinga, kung obsolete na, kung kailangan ng i-dispose ng fixed assets, or halimbawa, ibebenta, no? We have to properly record. Kailangan nating i-record, no, yung we have to recognize, di ba? Tatanggalin natin ito sa ating mga libro, and syempre, meron tayong corresponding journal entries dito. So, yun po ang mga specific objectives natin for the fixed asset system. Now, okay? So, ito po yung data flow diagram ng ating fixed asset system. But before ko po explain yung process na yan, please take note of this. Pagpasensyahan nyo na po, may portion dito na medyo hindi yata nababasa. I'm not really sure if nakikita po ninyo. The fixed asset system shares some characteristics with the procure-to-pay process. Sir, ano pong ibig sabihin ng procure-to-pay process? Kasi parang hindi naman po natin ito napag-usapan. Okay, class. Ang ibig ko lang po nitong sabihin na procure-to-pay is your purchases to cash disbursement. Okay? Yung ating first two parts ng expenditure cycle. The purchasing system and then the cash disbursement system. Sa mga audits kasi, tawag natin dyan, mga procurement to pay process, P2P. Kagaya naman ng sa revenue cycle, yung sales order at saka yung cash receipts, R2R naman yon, revenue to receipt, no? So, eto naman, P2P. Okay, but that is basically your purchases to cash disbursement. Okay? So, they share the same characteristics, pero dalawang important differences distinguishes these systems. Una, ito pong P2P, itong purchases to cash disbursement, they process routine transactions. Oh, ayan redundant din tuloy ako. Processes routine transaction. Okay. Paulit-ulit po ito kasi yung inventories, syempre, binibenta natin yan. So, nauubos yan, no? Pag nag-manufacture tayo, yung mga raw materials na ginagamit natin, okay, ginagamit yan sa production, so nauubos din yan. Kaya nga, routinary, no? It happens all the time, no? Throughout the year, throughout the period. Samantalang, dito po sa fixed asset system, it processes non-routine transactions. Hindi naman po kasi ito madalas na mangyari. Bibili ako ng sasakyan taon-taon. Okay? Hindi naman po ganun yun. It happens on a per need basis kung kailan kinakailangan. No? Halimbawa, nasira na yung mga computer equipments mo sa office. That is the time that you have to purchase. So it doesn't happen on a routinary basis. And it is for a wider group of users in the organization. Next, pangalawang distinguishing characteristic, this purchase to payment, or procure to pay or purchase to cash disbursement, it usually processes expenses of the current period. Sir, paanong expenses of the current period? I-inventory. Di ba inventory kinakapitalize natin? Oh yes, I understand. But, the purchase to cash disbursement process also captures yung mga expenses. Halimbawa, meron tayong babayaran, mga Meralco billings, water billings, communication expenses. Dadaan pa rin yan sa ating purchases to cash disbursement. Minsan, if the company uses a voucher payable system, lahat po yan ay dadaan doon. Okay? So regardless of the type of expenses or whether it is a purchase of inventory. And para naman sa inventory, kasi ginagamit natin ito, pag nabenta, we have to charge it to the cost of goods sold. So in-expense pa rin natin ito. But the assumption is that for the current period lang natin ito ginagamit. Now, for the fixed asset system, kinakapitalize po natin yung mga expenditures. Kaya nga, ang mga fixed assets, ang tawag din po natin dyan ay CAPEX, capitalized expenditures. Kasi we have to depreciate them, we have to allocate them into multiple periods. Remember your discussion on tawag nito, mga fixed assets. either sa intermediate accounting or sa basic accounting, no? So it involves cost allocation and matching procedures that are not part of routine expenditure systems. So yan po yung pangalawang difference, okay, nitong fixed asset sa purchases to cash disbursement. So please take note of these differences. Now, paliwanag ko na po sa inyo ngayon itong data flow diagram ng ating fixed asset system. Ang diagram na ito ay maididistribute or mahahati natin into 3 different parts. We have this one, your asset acquisition. Okay? We also have this one, your asset maintenance. And the last item here, the last part, we have your asset disposal. Ibig sabihin, yung fixed asset, dito lang yan umiikot. Una, kailangan nating bumili. Asset acquisition. And then we have to maintain. Etong part ng maintenance, ito yung we have to depreciate them from year to year or kung kailan man natin ito dinidepreciate. Usually, we have to depreciate it monthly kasi syempre may mga interim financial reporting tayo. Or kung kinakailangan ng management ng financial reports, kinakailangan natin na i-depreciate yung mga fixed assets. And then pag nagamit na po ito o kaya hindi gumagana, sira na siya, we have to dispose, tatanggalin na po natin ito sa ating libro. So kaya siya 3 parts. Okay. Now, in terms of our data flow diagram here, dito tayo mag-uumpisa sa user department. O bakit user department? Kasi nga po, yung user, kung sino man po yung department na yan, yung mag-i-initiate ng order. Okay? Dito tayo normally they will also follow the same purchase requisition, no? Depende sa company, maaring meron silang separate na form diyan, na paper form, or they can use the purchase requisition form para mag-request na meron po kaming kinakailangang bilhin. Nasira na po yung aming mga computers o kaya naman meron po kaming bagong staff, kailangan namin ng bagong computer. So, ayun po, we will be requesting. Ang bibili kasi niyan, hindi naman si user department, kung hindi, si purchasing department. Kasi purchases are centralized in the purchasing department. But sometimes, depende sa materiality ng ating fixed asset, it will undergo authorization procedures. Pag mga medyo, hindi naman siya ganun kamahalan, maaring yung manager sa user department, okay? Maaring authorized na siya para i-approve yung request, Magre-request, okay? Let's say, yung staff or supervisor or kung sino man po yung authorized na mag-prepare ng purchase requisition sa user department, gagawa siya ng purchase requisition, then ipapa-approve niya sa manager ng kanilang department. Pero kung medyo capital intensive ito, malaki-laki yung presyohan, kinakailangan maaring dumaan ito sa higher management, 1 level higher doon sa manager ng department na yon or department manager. And minsan kinakailangan pa po ito ng additional documentation such as yun nga po, mga cost benefit analysis. Will it be beneficial, Okay, and then once it is approved, okay, it will be forwarded to the purchasing department para mag-prepare ng purchase order at ganun po we will follow the same purchase to cash disbursement procedure. Kung makikita po ninyo, yung purchase order i-forward sa vendor, tapos syempre kapag na-provide na ni vendor yung order, ipapadala na po ito kasama ng packing slip at kung yung bill of lading, and then yung receiving department, tatanggapin niya ito. Okay, once it is received, prepare siya ng receiving report, i-forward ito sa accounts payable function or sa AP department for recognition. Okay, para makapag-record na. Pero dito pa lang po sa purchasing department, yung isang copy ng PO, i-forward sa accounts payable. And remember, di ba, meron tayong file doon na yung open PO file, if I am not mistaken, or the AP pending file. I think that is the AP pending file. nahihintayin muna natin yung receiving report bago tayo mag-prepare. Okay? Mag-prepare ng ating or mag-recognize ng liability. Pero hihintayin din natin yung supplier's invoice kasi meron tayong gagawing three-way matching. PO, supplier's invoice, and then the receiving report before we recognize the liability. Okay? We debit the fixed asset, we credit accounts payable. Okay, and then once it is due for payment, yung nandoon pa rin po sa ating purchasing to cash disbursement process, I am just repeating it coming from this perspective, no? O, di po process na po natin yung cash disbursement. Magre-release na po ng cheque, and then we have the cash disbursement journal or the check register. Okay. Now, of course, it will be forwarded sa general ledger for recording para doon sa summary na figures. Okay. Now, ano nang nadagdag po dito? Please take note here. Meron po tayong from the accounts payable forward natin sa fixed asset accounting, the asset cost data. Kasi 'di ba, ito nga po yung isa sa mga differences. Kasi doon sa ating doon sa ating purchasing to cash payments, wala naman tayong fixed asset. Nire-recognize lang po natin ito sa ating accounts payable subsidiary ledger. Pero dito, meron na po tayong entry may dagdag po tayo dito na function, yung fixed asset accounting. By the way, nakalimutan ko lamang po from the receiving, ito ang isa sa mga differences. Instead na diretso po ito sa storage or sa warehouse, yung physical fixed assets, yung binili natin, diretso na po ito pabalik sa user department. Okay? Now, tignan din po ninyo dito. From the receiving, merong copy ng receiving report sa fixed asset for proper monitoring. Kasi si fixed asset yung in charge for the asset maintenance, for our subsidiary ledgers. Kasi dito meron tayong panibagong document, yung bagong records. We have the subsidiary ledger. Ito po nakadepende sa fixed asset type. Okay? So meron po tayo dito fixed asset subsidiary ledger. And then dito po kasi nga 'di ba, yung ating asset, yung fixed asset na yan, mapapakinabangan natin in multiple periods. Kunwari, we purchase computer equipment. It will be depreciated for 5 years because the useful life is 5 years. We have to depreciate it for 5 years. Meron tayong kinakailangan i-prepare dito na depreciation schedule. Or other term natin dito, lapsing schedule. Ito kasi yung report na makikita po natin magkano buwan-buwan natin ito dine-depreciate. Okay? And then, kung meron mang mga changes, okay, it will also be reflected. Okay, from the user department, please take note here for asset changes. Halimbawa, sorry po, biglang nasira, do we have to recognize additional depreciation o papaano ba ito? Okay? So ito pong part na ito ng data flow diagram, this is your asset maintenance. Dito naman tayo, asset disposal. The asset disposal is initiated once we receive a notice from the user department na okay, nasira na po yung aming fixed asset. We will be preparing a disposal request form. Okay? Ipapa-authorize po namin ito, papa-approve po namin ito. Okay, then once the disposal request form is approved, ipo-process na yung disposal at tatanggalin na po ito sa libro. Okay? Kaya po kung makikita ninyo dito, laging meron tayong connection sa general ledger. Kasi from the fixed asset, okay, well, doon sa ating general ledger, pag manual processing hindi naman ito automatic na recorded at reflected sa ating general ledger balances. So may separate na notification dito para makita ng general ledger na may mga nangyayari sa fixed asset aside from the normal na depreciation. Okay, so yun po yung ating data flow diagram for a fixed asset system. Now, hindi ko na po nilagyan po ito ng physical system kung anong department. Pero please take note, dito sa asset acquisition, manggagaling po yan sa user department, no? Yung requesting department, it may be the IT, it may be the finance, it may be the, sabihin na natin, from the production area, it can be any department of the organization. And then the rest kasi will follow the same process na makikita po ninyo doon sa ating purchases to cash disbursement or our procure to pay. Okay? Sa susunod na video lecture, ipapakita ko lang po sa inyo yung mga unique na records na makikita po natin sa fixed assets. Pero the others, kasi same P2P lang po ito or purchasing to cash disbursement, hindi ko na po yun uulitin. Okay? We just have to check on our discussion or video lecture on the purchases to cash disbursement cycle. Okay, so yung mga unique lamang po, let's say yung mga depreciation schedule, mga disposal request forms, yun lang po yung i-document ko at i-explain ko sa inyo sa susunod na video lecture. So yun po there we go. There we have our fixed asset system. Please let me know if you have any clarifications for this topic. Okay, kung medyo kinakailangan po ninyo ng tulong para mas maintindihan po yung topic na ito, nandito lamang po ako or you can comment down below. Until the next video lecture, I'll see you around. Bye-bye.